Great morning, great morning, great morning. It's About You radio show here on WDRB The Media. It is 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday morning from 8 a.m. till 9 a.m. I'm your host, Mickey D. Happy to be on this platform. I don't take this for granted. I don't take it lightly. This is designed to encourage you, to motivate you to be the very best person you could possibly be. And every single morning at 8, of course, I said, I know you're having breakfast or somebody's in the gym working out. Thank you for the extra cup of coffee. Thank you for that extra lap you're doing. I'm doing it with you. And this morning, as always, I want to start off with our quote of the day, or the motivational moment of the day. And it's very simple today. It is, if you want to be the best, you must work harder than the rest. Let me say that again. If you want to be the best, you must work harder than the rest. Now, that work hard doesn't mean always physically. Sometimes it's working on yourself. Sometimes it's going to get the counseling. Sometimes it is physically working harder, or setting the goals and going after it like your life depends on it. And oftentimes you truly have to go work hard on yourself and work harder than the rest. Don't compare yourself. Don't look for the likes. Don't try to please other people. But you just work harder on you, and guess what? Success follows that part. The only way you find the word success before work is in the dictionary. So working on yourself is important, that part. So this has been brought to you by Love Biome. Go to MauriceMcDonald.net and learn about your amazing gut health. Hey guys, listen, today's show is going to be something that we have never ever talked about. However, it needs to be talked about because it's happening. It is real. And some of you will probably be shocked at the topic, but then again, it's okay. You'll get over it. We're going to talk today about the topic of pornography. We're going to talk about not just pornography, and obviously what that is, and the idea of, wow, you're talking about this on your radio show so early in the morning. Well, oftentimes we must talk about uncomfortable things. One thing I've learned is get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Simply because it's uncomfortable, but we have to talk about facts, where there's so many people struggling with the addiction of pornography. When people hear the word addiction, they think of drugs. They think of food, they think of sex. But pornography is an addiction as well. And now I'm going to talk about not just pornography in the church. In the church. So again, this could be a taboo for some people. But let's face it, because people don't talk about it doesn't mean it's not happening. And this morning, I'm very fortunate to have someone who's dealt with this and talking about this. And this is someone I'm going to have him introduce himself. But this is someone that I met over a year ago and involved in the faith arena. Someone who loves sharing about this information and has been a former pastor and been able to have some information about this. So let me introduce our guest for today. And this is Mr. Joe McCreary. How you doing, Joe?
I'm well. How are you, sir?
I am doing fantastic. First and foremost, thank you so much for your time this morning to lend to this topic, because you and I, when we met, I've been talking about it, doing this show, and I think today is a perfect time to do this.
We got it.
Yes.
We got it. Let's do it.
Yes. So if you would introduce yourself to my guest and tell them about you and why you felt called to, or your passion to share about this.
Yeah, thank you. So I am what is called a PSAP. It's a pastoral sexual addictions professional, and so what I do now is I help mainly men in the church get over their addiction to pornography and unwanted sexual behavior. And it's interesting that you said it's a hard topic to talk about, and that's why we have to talk about it, especially in the church. This came up about 17 years ago. I was dealing with pornography as I must have been 35 then, and I went on this church retreat, and I've been going to church my entire life, got saved at 7, and my parents started coming to church, and I grew up in the church and always felt called to be a youth pastor, which is what I did for a while, and it's the greatest job on the planet, to be honest. But I went on this church retreat, and there were 6 guys sitting in a gazebo, and we were just kind of hanging out, and one guy said, "Hey, I have a real problem with pornography. I can't stop watching it." And I was like shocked. I knew all 6 of these guys. I respected them. They were my friends. We hung out outside of church, and these things were never spoken about. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, him? He struggles? And now the Holy Spirit is convicting me, because now I have to share. Well, the next guy went, and he goes, oh, I struggle too. All 6 guys said they struggled with pornography use. And when it got to me, I said, I do too. So that was 7 of us in a church of it was a fairly large church, about 3,000. And all 7 of us said we struggled. And what that did to me was it made me realize that I was not the only one. The enemy wants to keep you isolated so that you don't talk about it, so that you just keep your little hidden sin. And when I got more into the recovery aspect, I realized, the damage that it does, not only to your health, but to your mental state, to your walk, your relationship with Christ. It makes you feel like you're not as good. And so it upset me. It upset me that I was struggling for, 20 some odd years, and nobody talked about it. And all these guys, there's obviously a need for it. So I decided to get some help, and I got some training, and we started our first recovery group with about 5 of those 7 guys. And that group is still going strong. I passed it off to another leader, and I'm doing other things now. I see people on the side, and I coach them through their pornography addiction. And it is so rampant in the church. Back when I first started, the statistic was 50% of Christian men say that pornography is a major issue in their life. And now it's up to 56%. So the problem is getting worse. And the problem is getting worse is because we don't want to talk about it because we're afraid. And pastors are afraid. Pastors deal with it too. They said like 1 in 7 pastors say it's a major deal. In fact, I had a pastor come to me one time, and he said, if I go to your group, Joe, I will get fired from my job, and I have a family to support. So the church is actually not only by not talking about it, it's actually hindering the spiritual well-being and the physical health of the people that they employ, not only the congregants that come and listen to them speak. And so this has been one of the most fulfilling jobs I've ever done in my entire life. I'll be 55 next month, and I would not trade my addiction and all the heartbreak and all the feelings I had about myself. I wouldn't trade that for anything, because I get to now walk through the fire with guys that want to be better, that want to have better marriages, that want to be better followers, and want to be better fathers. And so the payoff is so great for the little investment of just having awkward conversations. I love awkward conversations. Me and my family have them all the time, as you can imagine.
Yes.
But it's my honor to do what I do, for sure.
Yes, and I'm listening, and I'm sure I've got the attention of my listeners today for sure, because that number you put out, 56%, up from 50, men who are struggling in the church, and oftentimes these are well-meaning men.
Of course, yes.
Who love their families, who love God,
yes.
and struggle. I mentioned the addiction. The same thing with alcoholism. Addiction is addiction is addiction.
Yes.
But this one in particular, it just cuts against the whole faith, so to speak. and because of what's in it. But also, you said you got some training with this. So how long have you been trained to work with clients?
So I went back to school and I got a master's in pastoral counseling with a concentration in addictions. From Liberty University, and then I got my PSAP training from a company called ITAP. They handle all the sexual addictions for licensed counselors and pastoral counselors.
Right.
And it's amazing. Some of the stories that I've heard of people that thought they were too far gone, and I mean, just think of the tension, right? The tension of having faith and having this secret sin that actually grabs a hold of you and will not let go. What I learned in my training was people that are addicted to something, whether it's pornography or drugs or smoking or anger or any of these things, is they actually lose the capacity to stop. Think about that for a second. You're looking at somebody. It changed my worldview on people with addictions, right? They can no longer stop. They cannot stop. They don't have the capacity. They don't know how. They have to be taught. They have to be retrained. They have to be helped. And isn't that what the church is here for, is to help the hurting? You know, think about something you can't stop. Like, what a dark, lonely place that is. And pornography, because of its ease of access, right, is available anytime, anywhere, for free.
Absolutely. And, you know, that key word you said about stopping, because I'm listening to people now, because I know teaching at the college, we also teach with the substance abuse, people who want to be substance abuse counselors and those types of things. And we have, you know, the introduction, you know, the 101 class, or should we call it the entry level class of addiction. We have them to give up something they like for a semester. And some of it is playing golf, sweet tea, you know, Bojangles biscuits, okay? Whatever it is, because it's easy for somebody who doesn't have the addiction to say, well, just don't do it. You know, just quit. I mean, it's just that simple. But if you love sweet tea and you live in the South and you go out to a restaurant and they're going to give you one drink of tea, and you can get all the refills you want. You're sitting there for an hour and you had 4 glasses of it, and now you got to have dinner and drink water. That could be a struggle. It's a problem. Right. You know, now if you don't like sweet tea, well, that's, you know, if you like, for example, going to the driving range, you love golf, and you had to give golf up for 4 months. Oh, that could be so difficult. So I'm painting this picture for people who may be listening to us, saying, well, if they're real Christians, they would just won't do it. Go read your Bible instead. And that sounds good when you don't have that problem.
Well, to me, it sounds pretty judgmental.
Absolutely, it is. And like you said, the church is full of sick people. So the church is a hospital to help people. But yet also, what are your thoughts on people being judgmental in the church?
Well, I think it's a problem as well. I think as long as we're looking to other people, it's a problem, right? If I could be as perfect as I could be, I'd still be so far off the mark with in relative to who Jesus is. Right. I shouldn't have time to look at anybody else. I shouldn't have time to look at anybody else. And if you do, it's a pride issue, right? I'm better than them. Right? Yes. When the same Jesus lives in him, no matter what his sin is.
Right. That is
same Jesus.
So true. That is so true. And I imagine over the years that men probably deal with the shame and the hurt, or who really want to stop. And the idea of hiding it from their parents, hiding it from their spouses. Okay. Right. Yeah. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 2 things in that, right? First, we have to figure out the difference between guilt and shame, which you're probably aware of this, but many people aren't, right? Mm-hmm. Shame is I did something bad, therefore I am bad, right? Mm-hmm. Shame is I am bad. And guilt is I did something bad, right? You're guilty of something. Okay, so now if we take that a step further, right? If guilt says I did something, right, and you're guilty of it, where does that come from? Well, I believe that comes from the Holy Spirit for the purpose of correction, right? For the purpose of correction. Shame is I am bad, right? And that is for the purpose to keep you down. It speaks to who you are. Well, that comes from the enemy because we know our Father in heaven calls us more than conquerors, right? That he loves us no matter what. He loves us 100%, 100% of the time. And we are his chosen people. We are his adopted kids. And so when something speaks to your identity, we're talking about that tension again, right? The tension of doing something bad and feeling like that's all I can do, if that makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense. And that piece, you're right, because I said that shame because I thought that's exactly where you would go with it, because oftentimes people who don't understand the difference between shame and the guilt, can really just feel bad, totally bad about themselves. Yeah. And I'm not worthy of getting any help. I'm less than.
I'm less than.
Yeah.
Of all the men I've dealt with over the years, and I've done several recovery groups, thousands and thousands of men. And if we boil down our feelings to one thing, and it's fear. It's the fear of not being good enough, right? I can't stop. Well, there's the fear there, right?
Right.
Especially for a man, right? Because we're taught in our culture we can do anything, right?
Yes.
I've got 3 boys and a girl, right? My boys fell down when they were little, right? What would I say? Get up, you're all right. Wipe it off. You bleeding? Okay, go get a Band-Aid. You're fine, right? Mm-hmm. My little girl falls down, and I run right over to her. Oh my God, honey, are you okay? Are you okay? You hurt? And I pick her up and I carry her. She cries on my shoulder, and so that's different. So from a young age, we're taught that we shouldn't have feelings. We shouldn't be hurt. We shouldn't be fearful, right? Well, God gave us these emotions, right? And there's 2 parts to your brain. There's an emotional brain, and then there's your logical brain. And it's like, I like to give this example, right? Because most men have had it. Have you ever had a feeling of, what was I thinking, right? What was I thinking when I did that, right? Mm-hmm. What was I thinking? If it was a lie, say you say a lie to your wife or whatever, and then you walk away and go, well, that was a dumb lie. What was I thinking? That's your emotional brain taking over because it was afraid of something, right? Every guy, I guarantee, every guy that has ever looked at porn who loves Jesus walked away from that porn episode and thought, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Because the shame gets piled on. The shame gets piled on. And my Bible says we're not given a spirit of fear, right?
Yes.
We're not to fear anything. Greater is he that is in me than he's in the world, right?
Right.
And so if my God is so great in me, why do I still struggle with this? Which is part of the problem again, which is if we're not going to talk about it, it's not going to get better. In fact, statistics, even if you cut the statistics in half, right? Because that's a big number, right? Even if you cut those in half, it's too much. Way too much.
Absolutely. This is, I'm so glad that we're doing this talking, because I think it was over a year ago you and I met and we started. I said, when I found out what you did, I said, I got to do a show on that. And I'm just so glad we were able to work this out, because as you're speaking right now, I just feel the Holy Spirit is moving in somebody who's listening to this. Because
I hope so.
Yes, and the fact that they know somebody who's struggling with this. A good person, and it doesn't mean that they're not valuable, in God's sight.
Right. Think about it this way. So say I had a porn problem and you were my accountability partner or friend or somebody in the church I looked up to, right?
Yeah.
And if I said, hey man, I got to tell you, I'm really struggling with porn, the feeling that I would have would be like, you're gonna look lesser at me now, right? Mm-hmm. That's why people stay silent, right? Yeah. When the reality is, because I've had many guys come up to me. My father-in-law came up to me and said, "Hey, I've got a problem," right? My thought wasn't, "Oh my gosh, you." My thought was, "Oh my gosh, I feel so honored that you came to me so that I can walk through this, or get you some help if you don't have the training, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the enemy wants you to think one way, but the reality is totally different. I tell guys all the time, feelings are real. Every feeling you have is real, but sometimes they're not based in reality, and that's a game changer.
Yes.
Right? Because when you're thinking with your emotional brain, those feelings are real. You can feel fear or anxiety, but when you boil it down, when you really think about it with your logical side, are those really reality? Is that really reality? Now, sometimes they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they're not. And the answer to that question will determine how you respond to that situation, right? If I see a snake on a trail, right, that's going to alert me, and I'm going to feel fear. I don't know about you. I hate snakes.
Right.
Okay? And I'm going to get out of that situation, right, because my body is going to force me to move. That's reality. Fear, reality, move away, right? Now, if I step on a stick, and it's a long stick, and it pops up some leaves on the other side, I'm going to have that same feeling, right? Something's there, but that's not really based in reality because I stepped on a stick and popped up some leaves. Does that word picture make sense?
That word picture was perfect because in that same atmosphere, that same environment, I'm thinking that could be a snake, but once I discover it's a stick and leaves, but for that first 10 seconds or so, the fear kicks in. That is a snake, but that's not my reality.
Right.
Oh, I love that analogy. I love that. That just fits so perfectly because, and every time I find myself going through this or that struggle, I'm doing okay. Okay, I went a day or two without pornography. I'm sure there's always some type of. What are your thoughts about them having a fear of relapse?
Fear of relapse is, we call it white knuckling, right? Because you can resist for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't address the root of the issue, your grip is going to get loose, and you will relapse. You will fall. It's like this. If pornography is a flower, right, a dandelion in your lawn, right, and I just cut my lawn today, right? So I cut off. And I hate dandelions, so there's none in my yard. But if there were, right, I cut off the dandelion goes away, right? But what happens? What happens in a couple days? It comes back.
Yes.
It comes back because you didn't get to the root. The same thing is with pornography and relapse. If you don't dig the root, it's going to come up again. And the root is the hard stuff to do of how we were raised, our upbringing, our parents. Now, our parents, if you had a good childhood or a bad childhood, somehow we've got to come to the place of accepting it is what it is. Right? Mm-hmm. My parents did the best they could with what they had. Maybe their parents weren't that great, right? If you can come to a place where your parents did the best they could with what they had, even if it was really, really bad, that's digging up a root, right? And then that will allow you not to repeat the same behaviors as that were programmed into you when you were a child.
Right.
It's fascinating stuff. It is fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of it, and since you mentioned childhood, oftentimes in this field, we find, I know here, because my background's in counseling as well, childhood's is where a lot of things started, And
100%.
And the people don't want to talk about the past.
Yes.
I'm quite sure you probably had some people who were resistant to talk about their past.
Yes. In fact, I was sitting with a guy once, and I was asking him about his childhood, and he said, I had a normal childhood. He goes, well, there was this one time when my dad flipped over the dinner table and pulled my mom out of the chair by her hair. And I had my pastor face on, but inside my head screaming, okay, that's not normal. That wasn't normal for me. That didn't happen in so of course this guy's going to have trauma and the results of trauma in his life for being raised in a household like that.
Mm-hmm. And
every man has their own version of normal from the house that they grew up in. When that's a feeling, but it's not really based in reality.
Right, right, and that becomes normal to them to be in a dysfunctional house. And
Yes.
when a child, that's why you go visit someone else's house, and your house you don't have that, and then you see a house where there's dysfunction, and they're all seem to be okay with it. The child that's not used to it has this look on his face like, what is going on?
What is this going on? Yes,
like,
exactly.
oh wow, I don't know. And then it's no big deal, because that is what they're used to, and also being being exposed to things early. Like for myself, I had an uncle and that was, he was alcoholic, and guess what? My first drink was him, and I'm age 7. And the same thing that he showed me the first, pornography book, I was age 7. And he showed it to me. He told me, hey, when you get older, you're going to like this. I was 7 years old, and so I realized early on in life that that's what I got exposed to. And unfortunately, my mother moved because of abusive situation growing up in domestic violence. So therefore, I was moved away from it. But the seed got planted early.
Right.
In my mind, and figure a 7-year-old, who got exposed to that.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, and that's real. Hey, listen, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
But I honestly didn't realize how much I was out of balance and wasn't firing on all cylinders until I felt what it felt like to actually fire on all cylinders. I love the way I feel, and I genuinely look forward to taking these products every single day.
I love the Healthy Edge pack. It allows me to be more energized throughout the day. My recovery time from the gym is better, and I just feel a sense of well-being and vitality. My sleep is on point. I get restful sleep, because a lot of people sleep but they don't get restful sleep. That combination of P84 and Protandim is a 1-2 lights out punch, guys. I love it.
My hormones were out of whack, my gut health was bad, my sleep was off, my energy was off. A friend reached out to me, talked about a little yellow pill and a couple packs of powder. My health has never been better. My number 2 is great, if you know what I mean, and your number 2 does not lie on how your gut health is. These little packets of powder and this one little yellow pill has completely changed my health.
After introducing the Healthy Edge stack, something clicked. I'm sleeping soundly now. Restful nights, waking up refreshed, feeling renewed, digestion regularity. It feels amazing. And if you're listening, here's what I know for sure. Small, consistent choices compound into a life you're excited to live.
If you want to learn more about the Healthy Edge Stack, simply go to mauricemcdonald.net, MauricemCDonald, and learn about that Healthy Edge Stack. Do it today. Welcome back, guys. We're back. We're here talking about a very sensitive topic, but a very needed topic. And we're talking about, pornography in the church. And we talked about before the difference between shame and guilt. So Joe, I want to talk about this. I know we talk about men in the church and those types of things, the guilt they may feel struggling with it. What has your experience led with the men that keep this secret from their wives?
Yeah, it's devastating as well. When we talk about the long-reaching aspects of being a sex addict and struggling with pornography, it just seems to keep going, right? There's 70% of wives of sex addicts could be diagnosed with PTSD. So let that sink in a little bit. 70%, right? Because men are hiding it from their spouses. It's affecting their intimacy with their spouse. They're getting their needs met in unhealthy ways. It drives a wedge between a man and a woman. And let me tell you, one of the best things about what I do is when I have a couple come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, Joe, you saved our marriage." That is one of the greatest things I could hear, right? Because what I'm doing is I'm promoting intimacy in their marriage. They're finding out, or they're remembering how much in love they are, because it's a lot of guys. The number one excuse I hear from guys is, "Well, my wife, won't sleep with me. They won't have sex with me." Well, so what happens to a guy when he wants to be intimate with his wife, and she denies him, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the man's automatically going to think, oh, I'm not good enough. She's not attracted to me. When the reality is, right, going back to feelings and reality, the reality is, she may or may not have worked all day. She's cleaned the house. She's made dinner. She's worried about the kids. The dishwasher needs to be unloaded, and the guy just says, hey, I just want to be intimate so that I can satisfy my need, right? That's not the way God designed sex in marriage, right? Sex in marriage is an off-putting of affection, not for you. It's to please the other person. It's to promote that intimacy, right? And if you look in the Word of God, right, everything is, or there is nothing about you in the Bible, right? We're supposed to be servants. We're supposed to give. We're supposed to help. It's the same thing with the marriage bed. And so, unfortunately, if the issue of pornography isn't addressed, guys will start stepping out on their marriage and going to, all these other avenues that none of them are good, right? Either a prostitute or a massage parlor or actually meet somebody on the internet, and then they'll start having affairs, and it goes down a very, very dark road. And the reality is, it does not have to be like that. I've had guys, that have gotten help. There's one of the big trends now is to hook guys up to a polygraph test, right? Mm-hmm. For marriages that have decided to stay together, so that the woman can feel at ease that all the secrets are out, right? Because what we found is that guys will admit to just enough to get them over the hump, but they'll hardly ever admit to everything, right? Mm. Well, she caught me this time, and so they'll say, "Well, no, that was my first time." Well, that's a lie, right? A guy goes and sees a prostitute and gets busted. Well, no, that was my first time. More than likely, it wasn't, right? Mm-hmm. And so the lies that wedge in between a husband and a wife can be extremely devastating. And we're not even talking about the kids, right? The things that men do in their marriage, they have a ripple effect for generations and generations and generations down the line.
Absolutely. Talk about some of the ripple effects involving the children and going down the line.
Well, yeah. I don't know the numbers, but a child that's raised in a one-parent home, as opposed to a two-parent home, the hill gets steeper, right? Yes. The hill of everything, education, life, boys being raised without a father, right? Mm-hmm. Devastation, right? Yeah. More times than not, if it's not shared custody, the female will get custody, right? Which gives the guy freedom to do whatever he wants if he doesn't choose to get help. Then now you got an absent father that doesn't want anything to do with his children because he's out, playing with his addiction. It's awful, and part of the problem is the church doesn't talk about it. And in my personal opinion, the reason is because it's a hard topic, right? Mm-hmm. And I've had pastors tell me this. It affects the tithes, right? It affects the tithes. If the church is going to give money to people that are addicted to pornography, then people stop giving to the church, which is a whole nother subject. Right. All in and of its own. Yes, that is so true. And, as you talk about that, as a former high school counselor myself, having students, boys who were addicted to porn as kids in classroom, even online in the classroom, looking it up, even smart enough to get past the firewalls that they have at school, and having boys that sat across from me because he had this disrespect for women, for girls. He kept calling them out of their name, the B word, And then I got to talking to him. His brother was tragically killed, and so I got his behavior changed. Dad was not in the house, and as it turned out, Mom had a boyfriend.
and had the door open, she was having sex. And the bedroom door open, and now I kind of figured why she didn't. And man after man after man after man. Turns out that mom had some issues, and so naturally, so what you were just saying, how it affected this young man in particular.
Right.
And he's 15 years old, and his whole attitude toward women was just he had no respect. And it could be some of what you just talked about. Dad's not there. And mom had her own addictions, because I know we've been talking mainly about men, but, what are your thoughts about women being addicted to porn?
So the numbers also have increased again in those, and it is 87% of Christian women say they have watched porn in the past.
Wow.
So I think about 20 years ago, it was probably like 20% or something. And I'll tell you why. It's because guys are going unchecked watching pornography, expecting females to be this person on the screen to do what they do, act like they do, respond how they do what they're watching, and it's just not natural. It's just not natural.
Mm-hmm.
Pornography reduces a female to a two-dimensional object.
Right.
And women, I know my wife is way smarter than me in all aspects. To reduce her down to a two-dimensional play toy, right, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I've had women tell my wife, I just felt like he was using me to masturbate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not intimacy.
No.
That's not a sexual relation inside of a marriage. That's disgusting, right?
Right.
And it's just, and if we don't talk about it, it's going to continue to get worse and worse and worse. In fact, 7% of pastors in the United States say they have some kind of program to help people like this. 7%.
Low numbers.
7%. Low numbers, right? So to say there's no need is ridiculous. Right?
Yes. This has to be something that they want to talk about it, because one thing about it, not talking about it will not make it go away.
Right.
It's going to be. It's the problem is still there, and it's like a diagnosis that a doctor gives you, and he tells you, listen, I need you to do this A, B, C, and D, and we can beat this thing. And I do the opposite. And then 6 months, a year later, I'm still not aiming it. So therefore, hey, am I surprised if I get sicker? Because I'm not doing what I need to do to take care of this.
Just because you can't see cancer doesn't mean it's not there.
Exactly. And so the same thing here. And I think that this part about, everything being sexualized. And I've also, when I did the, domestic violence groups, I'd hear men saying some of the very same thing. She's not like this. She won't do this. And as you said before, the laundry's got a bit done, all those kind of things. And we used to talk about the word intimacy, and I had went through a workshop once, some training that I had to go through, and they were talking about intimacy. It's a room full of men. And he said, listen to this. Intimacy has nothing to do with Victoria's Secrets. He said, intimacy. Listen to the words. Into me you see.
Oh, that's good.
yeah. He broke that down. Into me you see. The idea is, are you connected emotionally with her? Do you know what makes her tick? Her likes, her dislikes, her desires. Do you actually listen to her? Not listen with trying to tell her, well, all you got to do is that. Because again, men love to tell. We're raised to tell what to do, as opposed to actually listen to her and get that connection. And so oftentimes, if I'm not listening, like you said, well, there are more fish in the sea. How they get angry. And now which I have students here who are female, of course, and they have significant others, and they're trying to get their degree. They're trying to work hard to do things. And what happens is they say things like, nobody wants you anyway. You got more time for school, no time for me. Everything is about me in this house, me in this house. I think it's been selfish, and I believe a part of this idea of wanting your partner to perform something that she sees on a screen or forcing them. What are your thoughts about some of the partners wanting their wives to watch it with them?
Oh, yeah. I've had those. I've had guys in the past that have, confessed to me that that's part of their thing. And it's not the way it's supposed to be, right? It's not the way God designed it. It's not the way God designed it. And, part of the problem is, when a guy will say, well, it's my wife's fault because she doesn't have sex with me as often as I like. Well, okay, that's not her issue. That's your issue, right? And it's a conditioned response because pornography never says no, right? If I want to orgasm, right, I'll watch porn for, 5-10 minutes, I'll masturbate, and then I'll be satisfied. Porn doesn't say no, and porn always wants you, right? So when a guy faces rejection from his wife, they don't know how to handle it because they've been conditioned to get it whenever they want it, right? So hey, watching pornography worked for me, maybe it'll work for you, right? Well, that just it twists God's design for sex. If we think about it, God gave us sex. God, in all of His wisdom, could have made us procreate in any number of ways that didn't involve sex, and yet He loved us enough to give us this gift of sex to express your love for your spouse and to make a baby. That's pretty awesome, right?
Yes.
But when we use it for something that it wasn't designed for, then it turns into something it wasn't meant to be. And it takes you down a dark road. They say sin will cost you more than you ever want to spend and take you way farther than you ever want to go. That's pornography.
Yes.
I've been in contact with guys that started with pretty vanilla pornography, and then it went to a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, and then it went to, possibly rape scenes, and then it went to gay pornography, right? And these guys are straight. And, if you look back, you'll say, holy cow, this would disgust me, but now I'm craving it.
Right.
And that's what sin does. And God is bigger than that. God is so much bigger than that. And it doesn't have to be like that. And you don't have to sit in church thinking you're a second-class Christian because you have the secret. Get help and get better, and you'll see that Scripture is true when it says all things work together for the good.
Yes. And I look at this, and that's why I'm so glad that we're finally pulling the curtain back on this show today, because it's been on my mind for the longest. And I said, you know what am I waiting for? Now is the time to make this happen, to talk about this, because I just think about all the men that I grew up with and the young men growing up, part of that act like a man box that we live in, that we learn between the ages of 2 and 12 years of age, about, like you said, be tough, don't cry, don't back down, and the girls are allowed to cry because she's a girl, I'm more than. So men have always had this stuff growing up. I don't care what culture you're in, what language you speak, that's pretty much the male dominant picture. And part of that was the sex. And the big thing was, I remember as a little boy, that same uncle would tell me, how many girlfriends you got? And I put one finger up, and you ain't got but one? Yeah. You ain't got but one girlfriend? And I remember I put 10 up, and I got praise and accolations from him. He'd give me a high five, Yeah, you got more than one. And so the image is men having more than one woman and being proficient in sex, having many partners, creates another whole issue for us. Can you speak to some of that?
Yeah, culture says, the more women you sleep with, the bigger man you are. Well, that doesn't make you a man, right?
Right.
It's about your feelings of being a man. I've slept with one person, and my buddy has slept with 5 people, he's more man than I am, right? He's more manly. Well, that's a feeling, but it's not based in reality, right? The greatest man I know has slept with one woman their entire life, right? When you think about, older people who have been together forever and it's the only two people they've ever been with, gosh, who doesn't want that, right? To have that experience of knowing and being known to that deep a level where you could say and talk about absolutely anything. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's by design. That's how God designed it. And when we take something and pervert it, it makes it ugly and sinful. And that's not a man.
Right.
A man will do what's right.
Yes. And I'm thinking about now all the young boys, because she says it's easier to help children than try to fix adults. And right. I think about the young boys who are now 13, 14 years of age, and they've already gone down that path. There needs to be something to kind of help them. What they say is a ounce of prevention with a pound of cure, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are some of your thoughts along, working with teenagers?
Yeah, they say that 8 is too late, right? Mm-hmm. Most children have been exposed to pornography by the age of 8. Now they might not understand it, but they'll know, I probably shouldn't be looking at that for whatever reason, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the way you fix that is there's a couple reasons. It's got to start in the church. It's got to be talked about in the church. And then it's got to be talked about at home. I have a 20-year-old son that just got engaged Saturday night. And I know for a fact that they are both virgins going into this marriage that we'll be having next summer. And I am so excited for them to be able to partake in the act of marriage because they don't have any. And the reason that is because I've talked about it ever since they were little. We have the hard conversations of, we're not going to watch this movie. Well, why, Daddy? Well, because it's got some stuff in it that I don't want you to see. You're not mature enough to take it. You're not going to understand it. Well, why, Daddy? Well, because, sex is made for a man and a woman in the realm of marriage. And so I am so excited that they get to start their marriage with a clean slate, and I pray to God that God will keep them both clean, moving on, right? Because marriage is hard, and of course he's young. I think he's too young. I've made it known, but they're gonna figure it out for themselves. And it's what a gift to give your spouse, right? Yeah. To be the first woman or the first man that they've ever slept with.
Yes,
it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. There's no other word than beautiful.
Exactly right, and that
but
part,
it's got to be talked about in the home, and it's got to be. It can't be this taboo topic that nobody talks about.
Yeah, the big secret, right. that ends up happening, and the idea that. What are some of your thoughts about the men who have recognized their addiction and they're getting help? They actively really want to get help, and they're working I guess they're playing their work and working their plan. What are some strategies do you recommend for the men?
Yeah, so the female, the wife, has to be brought in to the life of recovery, right? Which means doing intimacy exercises every single day, right? And that has nothing to do with sex. That's talking about, guys don't like to talk about feelings, right? But it really comes down to the man's emotional IQ, how intelligent they are emotionally, right? You ask a guy how he feels, it's going to be mad, sad, glad, or hungry.
Yep.
Right? Those are our 4 basic feelings. Well, a woman's feelings go way beyond that. So if we're going to speak their language, we've got to talk about our feelings, which is very, very hard for a man to do because he simply doesn't understand it. It's like speaking a foreign language, right? And so doing intimacy exercises where you're sharing what was the best part about your day, what was the worst part about your day, did you have any regrets today, Do you have anything you want to celebrate today? Why are you celebrating it, right? Just exercising those emotions so that they can begin to start getting on the same page emotionally so that intimacy can come back. I think I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then going to meetings, you can go to sexual addictions meetings, just like AA, just like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's based on the same thing. Go to meetings. They're in every state in the United States, multiple cities, and you will meet some of the most interesting people that will become lifelong friends if you choose to walk through this journey. But you can't give up, even if you fail, right? Even if you have a relapse, even if you have a slip up, right? You are not that person, right? Because God has called us to more than that. And so even if you slip up, get back up on the horse and keep going down this road to recovery, because it's our job to set the stage for God to work, right? Mm-hmm. And if God's Bible, if His love story is true, right, and all things work together, we have to put all the stuff on the stage so that He can give us a concert of a lifetime.
Yes, I'm here now. Just inside of me, so excited about this topic that we get to talk about. I'm thinking about the men who are listening to this right now who are being convicted. Because I'm sure if they've been listening the whole time, they know we're talking about them. And even though we don't know them, but if they're sticking around, they're hearing something. You mentioned about they're all around the countries. Is there any particular website that you could recommend where somebody could find, or they just go to Google, or what are your thoughts?
Sure. There is a great company in Oregon called Pure Desire. It's where I got my training from. Of course, they were much smaller back then. They are huge. They are worldwide as well. I believe the website is puredesire.org. And you can get counseling there. You can get free resources. That's kind of a one-stop shop. And they are, they have a spiritually focused recovery group. So it is spiritually focused. I've done a lot of research on recovery curriculum. This is by far the best I've ever come into contact with. I taught it for almost 15 years, and it'll blow your mind how good this stuff is. puredesire.org.
puredesire.org. Great, absolutely. And I'm thinking that hearing this also from a wife who's listening to this, or a girlfriend who's listening to this, and who's thinking about marrying somebody that has this issue. This is something I believe that needs to be dealt with before you cross that aisle.
100%, because it's like the cancer, right? If you don't see it, doesn't mean it's not there. That same website has a whole female section on people that have been betrayed by their spouses. That's female focused. They've got female counselors that will talk to you. It's a great. They've got curriculum that you can go through. I believe it's called Betrayed and Beyond, or Betrayal and Beyond, or something like that. That you can get to educate yourself. Right, education is the key to everything. Right, and just like my education back in the gazebo. Right, when I finally found out I wasn't the only one.
Yes.
Well, you're not. If you're a spouse of someone who's addicted to pornography or sexually acting out, you're not the only one. And guys, you're not the only one who might sit in a pew on Sunday and you were up till 3 a.m. watching porn the night before. You're not the only one, and it doesn't have to be like that. It just doesn't have to.
All right. Thank you so much. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Did you know all disease begins in the gut? That's right. All disease begins right in your gut. You've got trillions of bacteria that influence your immune system, your energy, your emotional well-being. The good news is, whether you're 8 or 85 years old, you have a gut, and you need P84 in your system. P84 is 84 fruits and vegetables organically grown all over the world, designed to restore your gut. probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics, all organically designed to help your gut thrive the way it's supposed to. Simply go to mauricemcdonald.net. mauricemcdonald.net, MauriceMcDonald.net, and learn more about the living well, eating smart, and feeling better with P84 in your system, all organically grown. Once again, go to mauricemcdonald.net and learn all about your gut microbiome. Okay, guys, we're back. Listen, this time has gone by so quickly, and information was just given out just a moment ago. So, again, Joe, if you would give that website out again for my listeners just one more time.
Yeah, it's called puredesire.org.
puredesire.org, guys. So jot that down. But before we go, Joe, I know you had mentioned that the greatest thrill that you had, or the thing you love most, is to hear a woman say, "You saved our marriage." That right. Thought. I know you had mentioned your own marriage or whatever. I guess you and your wife have a lot of good conversations about the work you do.
Yes, we do. Actually, we did. My wife passed away about 3 years ago. The wife that we walked through this, and we were able to, we decided to stay together after I kind of confessed everything. And she was able to get some training, and she was actually in charge of the females, of the wives of the guys that I was meeting with. And so she actually led one of those Be Trading Beyond workshops at our church. And we were able to kind of tag team. We were able to do the men and the women at the same time. And, you know, it's kind of a two-edged sword, because I was starting to think, oh my gosh, I'm in charge of now saving all these marriages, which is a hill that I'm not supposed to climb, right? And I would leave groups sometimes, and I would just be crying over these guys, because there'd be guys that, you know, I was involved with, and were not sleeping in the house, or not sleeping in the bedroom, or sleeping on the couch, or all these things. And I felt, oh my gosh, I just have to say something. I have to do something to heal these marriages. Well, then the Holy Spirit really kind of dealt with me and said, no, I'm supposed to just hold up the torch, right? I'm supposed to hold the light up for these people that are in dark places in their marriage, and it's really up to them if they're going to follow or not follow. And so if you're in that situation where you and your spouse aren't sleeping together, you know, or in the same room, you know, it's up to you. It's up to you to take the step. You know, I say to my guys in my group all the time, I said, I want a group full of guys that'll be that guy. Yeah. That guy that's going to say something first. That guy that's going to cry first. Mm-hmm. Right? Just like the guy that was in the gazebo that, you know, had the courage to say it first. Well, look what that started. Had he not done that, those ripples would have stopped right there.
Yes.
Now it's, you know, 15, 17 years later, and the ripples are still going on. And I know, because of the struggles that I had, that families are stronger. My family is stronger. Children are stronger. Children are growing up in different households than if I would have stayed silent. Silent is the killer.
Yes.
Don't be silent.
That's exactly right. And if somebody's listening to this and they're in their church and they would want to talk about it, to have a platform to talk about it, would you recommend them maybe talk to a pastor or a deacon or someone there, possibly about starting a group or something?
Absolutely. They could actually email me, and I could get into it more with them as well.
Okay. What is your email address?
My email is Joe W. McCrary, JoeWMCCRARY @gmail.com.
Okay. Give that one more time. I hope they got a chance to get a pen.
It's JoeWMCCRARY @gmail.com.
Right, and that way they can reach out to you, and if they have some questions or whatever else, because I know this topic is hitting home to a lot of people, and probably some people who struggled with it in the past, and now they've made some changes or they've overcome some things, and and the fact that first of all that we're bold enough. First of all, like I said, I want to thank you for sharing it, because we talked about this a while back, and now we finally have done it, and I think it was well worth it, because we can talk about alcohol addiction, we can talk about food addiction, but the one that has all the real issues, and by the way, I'm not discrediting those at all, because they're all bad, but this one is damaging to relationships and people. And so I just thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share this information today. And guys, listen, that's it for this week. We'll be back next Tuesday, 8 o'clock on Tuesday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for the It's About You radio show here on WDRB, the media, the voice of the community. We'll see you next week. I love you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Be blessed, guys.